Today we have with us a very special guest. Her name is Jessica Jones. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jock. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to let people know that you're special in a whole lot of ways. When you were young, you were up on the stage. You had the courage to get up on the stage in front of your classmates, the teachers, the parents of the other children, and perform in musicals all throughout high school. That takes a lot of courage. I think that courage probably carried over into your podcasting career because you had the courage to get up in front of the entire world on the cyber stage, let's call it, and do live shows with all sorts of guests who are very outside the box. The Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. You've also got thecryptidhuntress.com as your official website. You also have the courage to do something called remote viewing. Now, I've seen you do remote viewing for Barry Littleton, who's given you targets throughout the universe. You've done an amazing job. And I was like, wow, I wonder if Jessica would do a remote viewing target for me. And then you said yes. And I said, oh, I guess I have to figure out what the target's going to be, And I thought, well, maybe it should be an ancient site. For those who don't know much about remote viewing target protocol, when you give someone a target, you basically just give them numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are associated in your mind as the person giving the target with a certain location, but you don't tell the remote viewer the location. You don't give them any hints about what it is. You just give them the numbers, which are associated by your intent as the targeter with a certain location. I gave Jessica some numbers associated with a certain location, a certain event in history, and her data is coming up now. Jessica, would you be so kind as to show the world your remote viewing data?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have no idea, even right this moment, I have no idea what this target is at all. I have my data, but yeah, you explained it perfectly, actually. And yeah, remote viewing, I'm given the type of the mode of remote viewing I did for this target is called coordinate remote viewing. And there's so many different modes of remote viewing, but this is the one that I prefer. And it's the one that I do the most often. And you gave me a set of coordinates, just some random numbers that you came up with that pertain to this target. And we call it a blind target. So I was just given those numbers, and I have several pages of data right here. Okay, and I'll be glad to go over all the data with you today. And hopefully it's on target somewhat. Hopefully it's just data, of course. But I love doing remote viewing targets because it can always give us information that we might not have known about certain targets and things like that.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun for me.
Well, we as people who target or give targets to remote viewers, we can give targets in time as well as in space. So the remote viewer never knows for sure whether the target is in modern time or the future, maybe, or the past or the distant past. So the remote viewer is totally blind. Now I want to show just for a moment all the data that I wrote down, and the coordinate numbers, everything is on this piece of paper, and it's right there. And I'm going to fold this. And now I'm going to ask Jessica to tell me to tear it in a specific way so that you know that this is the stuff, all the data that I gave to Jessica. I mean, all the data that I attached to the numbers that I gave to Jessica.
All the for the coordinates.
Yeah.
Are you going to rip it?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Are you sure you want to rip it?
I'm a little bit.
Okay.
So one way or the other, you tell me how to rip it.
Okay. Rip it in the middle horizontally.
Like this?
Yes.
Okay. Like how far should I rip it? How far should I rip it?
Half inch. Just a little bit.
Like that?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So we see that that's ripped, right?
Yes.
So that is the yellow piece of paper with all the data that's attached by my intention to the numbers that I gave to Jessica. Okay.
Oh gosh. I hope this is on target.
Me too.
Me too. Oh my gosh. Oh man, I have done this before where I've done coordinates for people, for friends of mine and stuff, and I didn't know they were going to ask me on air to go over the data, and I didn't know what the target was, and I felt like a deer in the headlights, but it worked out perfectly though. It was fine. It makes it kind of more, even more authentic. You know what I mean? We go over the data. I'm just sweating bullets over here. That's all. Just
Are
kidding.
you sweating bullets because you're so excited to know what the target actually is?
Yeah, I am. I'm actually really excited to know what the target is. I am. I am. Like I said, I love this. This is what I do. This is my favorite hobby.
Well, should we give your data first and then I'll tell you the target?
Mm, we can.
Or
Sure.
or should I give the target first? And I don't know how to do it. I don't know
I
how.
don't know. Well, you know what? If you tell me the target beforehand, I could interpret the data a little better as
Yeah,
we're going over it.
but
Or we could just wait too, because it's kind of cool to do that as well.
let's wait, and then the
Okay.
audience can get the raw data, and then they can see if they think that it matches up with
If
the,
it matches.
and then
Okay.
you can interpret it.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Let's just start. The first page of data is my stages 1, 2, and 3 for
Okay.
remote viewing. Okay. The first stage, first of all, what I do is like automatic writing, basically. So we do something called ideograms. And I'll show the audience in case you guys want to see it. I write down the coordinates, and then I go down the page and I write. My hand automatically writes, and I interpret whatever I write as different ideograms, and then I write those down. That's my stage 1. As you can see, I've traced over that over and over again right there.
Yeah.
That's because I'm getting. It's helping me pull the information from that target.
You did automatic graphics, and then you went
Mhm.
back consciously and traced over it.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes, that's what I do, and it helps pull the information out. Okay,
Interesting.
of the ethers, and so it helps me to hone in on the data that's
Mm,
coming through, and
mm.
that's the sensory data. Okay, so I have sensory data, and then I have something called analytic overlay, which is me kind of interpreting what the sensory data is.
And
And
sensory data can be visual,
mhm,
auditory, smell.
yes, taste as well. It
Okay.
can be anything, anything that I hear, taste, touch, smell, hear, anything that I sense,
You can
using
touch.
all of my senses.
You can feel something maybe.
Etherically, yes.
Right. I mean, like you could say,
Yes.
"Oh, it's smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Feels smooth." Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I have so we'll just go over some of my sensory data first, and then we'll go over to my analytic overlay.
Okay.
Okay. For this target, some of my sensory data includes busy. I'm going to go over all of it. I'm not going to leave anything out. Busy, massive, cold, bright, even, straight, evolved, buried, great, stacked, and captured. That's my sensory data. Okay. And my analytic overlay, where I'm actually seeing objects and I'm interpreting what I'm looking at. Okay. The first thing I wrote down was a land mass. Land mass. I saw the sun. What I interpreted as a sun. I wrote down evolution. Underground and buried were part of the data. Something ancient, prolific, stacks. I was seeing something that was stacked in layers, and I actually drew that for my picture. This is my stage 3 drawing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It looks like almost like it just looked like layers of something stacked on top of each other over and over again. I kept seeing a lot of layers, and I wrote down sediment. I was definitely picking up on dirt, or like a ground, like some kind of dirt maybe. But I wrote down sediment, and then I started picking up. I was hearing words that don't make sense really, so I wrote that down. But I wrote down misaligned. That's a word that I understand. I wrote misheaved. Misheaved. I wrote that down. I was like, that's not even a word. But or disheveled was another word that I heard. So disheveled, misaligned. I wrote down the word monstrous. Something that was monstrous. And I wrote down dirt, of course. I wrote down forsaken, and then I wrote down a cliff and a cliffhanger. So a cliff and a cliffhanger, and then something. I wrote down the word secrecy. Okay, and then I drew that drawing, and that's all my data for page 3. I mean, or for stages 1 through 3 for page 1.
Wow.
Okay, so that's all the data.
Okay.
Now, would you like to discuss that before we go further?
What do you think we should do?
Yeah, let's discuss it. That's what I usually do on my remote viewing show. Like a lot of times, like I still don't know what the target is. Could you tell me if that is even remotely on target, maybe?
There are, I'd say, at least half of them are very specifically on target, and some of them are, I think 4 of them are obscure to me as far as being relevant to the target, and then the other ones could be interpreted maybe as relevant to the target, but there's some really,
Okay.
really specific ones that are right on target. So,
Cool. Okay, great. Well, let's move to stage 4 data.
okay.
Okay, so we're going to go to the next page,
Yeah.
and this is more sensory data. So I'm going to jump back and forth from sensory data to how I interpret it as an analytic overlay.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing I wrote down, before I even wrote down sensory data, I was still kind of going from the first page. I wrote, if there was an event. I wrote event.
Okay.
My sensory data was flowing, something flowing. And
Okay.
my AOL was, I call it AOL, was information flow and info war. Information war.
Wow. Okay.
So information flow and an information war. Then I wrote down sensory data. I wrote shrouded, veiled, and ancient. Okay, something ancient.
Yeah.
My analytic overlay, I wrote down a pyramid. I wrote pyramid, architect, and architecture. And then going back to sensory data, I wrote down old, dilapidated, and solid. I was seeing rocks and stones. And so I wrote rock, stones, and capstone. A capstone and a megalith. So I wrote down megalith. And that was my second page of data.
Okay, now some of those, let's say half of those pieces of data might seem quite general to people. Like the
Mhm.
first few things you listed was, and they might say, "Oh, well, that could be applied to anything." It doesn't sound like she's really, but I promise you that the fact that some of those are general actually mean that they're more on target in certain ways for reasons that will become really clear really soon. So thank you for all of those. I think that's really good data. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. And here's another thing too, is like when you're doing a session, like with a tasker,
Yeah.
in a regular session, like you would have taken, like we would have taken this data that I gave to you, right? And you would have had me go further into it. Like if I picked up on an event and the target was an event, you would actually have me go back and do this again and focus on that event.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and get details about it. That's how remote viewing works when it comes to this kind
Okay.
of data that we're getting here. And my tasker would normally guide me where to go and where to look as I'm doing the target.
Right.
Okay,
So
so it gets real specific.
in the moment of you doing remote viewing, the tasker, the targeter,
Mhm.
is helping you.
Guiding me. Yes,
He's
they
doing it
can.
by
They
voice.
can be. Yeah, it just depends on if it's like a double blind, a single blind target, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it gets really technical, but we just did like a general one target, one session,
Right.
and that's all we did. So it will be probably more general with the data, but it does get very specific. Some of these targets, these sessions can go on for days or weeks or however long you need them.
Oh, I see. So you did back into the scene
Yes.
day after day.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a whole team of remote viewers too. My entire team was trained together over years, several years.
So you were trained with a team?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, I sure
Who,
was.
who trained you?
Yeah, it's actually my Bigfoot team. The head of my team trained us. He was a very amazing. He is an amazing remote viewer, and I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
So yeah, he trained our entire team as part of being of doing the Bigfoot field research, actually, to help us get more information about what we're doing out there in the field, what's happening to us,
Right.
things
So
like
you,
that.
it's
Yeah.
like having an aerial reconnaissance view, like what the military does to help them know what action they should take.
Yes, yes. Our military utilizes remote viewers. Yes. I actually do remote viewing. I've gotten targets, a lot of targets actually, involving missing persons and cold cases that law enforcement was kind of, they were going cold. So someone will reach out to the head of my team and ask them for assistance with his remote viewing team to try to solve cold cases and things like that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool.
Oh yeah.
That legitimizes it that police forces are asking
Mm-hmm.
remote viewers for help in cases they can't solve. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I've done a bunch of cases, things that I don't talk about publicly.
Right. Well, see,
Yeah.
this is the most practical thing in the world is police work. So the idea that remote viewing is somehow woo-woo is not true because the police are embracing remote viewing and bringing it down and saying we need some help with this case,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't do it just using our boots on the ground and our thinking skills. We need another view. We need another level of understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what better way than just and it's not just like psychically looking into stuff. It is psychically looking into stuff, but it's a scientific way of psychically looking into stuff, and us having pages of data to hand over to them that might give some more clues. Why not? If I had someone in my family or someone I love that was missing, first thing I do would be to contact my remote viewing team to have everybody looking into it.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
Absolutely, we've had that happen before. Mysterious deaths, things like that. We'll send out a red alert to the whole team as a high priority target, and everybody will sit down and do a session, not knowing what this red alert is, and a high priority target, and we compile all the data from everybody and try to get some answers.
So it sounds like the remote viewing might be the first thing that a law enforcement agency might want to pursue in any
Mhm.
missing persons case.
I would think so. It's mind-boggling why they don't utilize remote viewers more often. But I even have a friend who is a sniper. Okay, I don't know if he's currently still doing that. He was in the U.S. military, and he's told me, he said, we actually have a remote viewer assigned to all the units out there. They they are utilized more than the general public would know
So the
or
remote
be informed
viewer, the
of.
remote viewer can be back at the base. He's not out in the field.
Well, it depends. You can be out in the field too. There's different modes of remote viewing. And you can be there on site and do remote viewing targets. Maybe not sitting there writing it all down like coordinate remote viewing, but energetic remote viewing. I mean, there's different modes.
And then
Yeah.
there's also the remote viewers helping the military who might be just sitting in their office back in DC
Yes.
and just relaying the information in real time by the phone or whatever.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Well, let's move because I know you're antsy to
Okay.
find out what this target is. So
Yeah.
the sooner we get through your data, the sooner
Okay.
your prayers will be answered.
Oh God. I'm still sweating over here. No, I'm just kidding. So this is the final page of data. Okay. I didn't get too deep in this because I did not have any kind of knowledge as like whether I was on target, and I didn't these sessions. I got as deep as I could.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point. So the next page is my page 3 stage 4 data. I wrote down forbidden, and that was part of my sensory data. But I wrote down forbidden knowledge and forbidden fruit. Okay, forbidden fruit. I was definitely picking up on an Adam and Eve vibe. Okay, definitely picking up on like an Adam and Eve vibe, and I saw like the garden. Okay, like that's where I went. And this is so weird and interesting, right? Because as I was remote viewing this, I went from feeling like I was like in a desert kind of an area, like something that was dry, to like, and I wrote this down. I wrote Adam and Eve, and I wrote travel back in time, and I wrote an arrow backwards. Like I went back in time, and it was like dry desert, and then but before that, at some point it was luscious and green. And I wrote garden, green vegetation, and a fruitful garden is what I wrote down. And something that was green. And so I was seeing that, and I actually even wrote like a snake climbing up a tree or something. That's kind of like what I wrote down. I wrote that, but then I wrote down, I was like thinking I was seeing either a snake or maybe it was like, I wrote down Kundalini. I wrote down Kundalini. And I wrote down the medical staff, like that. The
Caduceus.
Put on ambulances and stuff. Yes, that. And then I wrote down serpent. Okay. And then the last thing that I wrote down, I heard clairaudiently, I heard from dark to light is what I heard. And then I ended the session because I was like, all right, this is kind of weird, right?
Yeah,
it's a little weird. And I wasn't sure. I knew that I was about to go down a rabbit hole of Adam and Eve and good versus evil and all that, because that's kind of what I was feeling like at the time. And I ended the session right there. So that's the data. That's the data.
So when you heard this from dark to light, was that a voice that you heard?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Who's like, was it a male voice or a female voice?
It was just a telepathic kind of voice. I don't know. I just heard the words. I don't know if it was male or female. I don't know.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. From dark to light.
Was it in your voice, like in your head, like when we talk to ourselves?
Sometimes things do come across in my voice, like it's almost like my higher self or something. I don't know. But I just heard a voice from dark to light. Yeah, it was just like telepathic. And I actually wrote it down in the middle of the page, and I put quotation marks around it because that was the last thing I heard, and then I ended the session right there.
Right, because you're quoting whoever it was that was speaking from
whatever. It was like a consciousness more than anything.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really weird.
Well, the thing is, I mean, as a remote viewer, you've done a lot of targets, and I feel like most of them are probably with more specific data than this one. This sort of feels real kind of amorphous and like, what are we doing here, right?
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes. I was definitely poking around in the darkness right there, not knowing what I was doing.
Okay. See, this is perfect because now this is the page, right? This is the page you asked me to tear in the middle, right?
Yes.
That's the one.
Okay.
Now this is the thing. I'll read it out.
Okay.
Decide target that I want Jessica to view. Write it down. It can also be a picture. These are the instructions that you gave me, and I was just writing them down for myself. Okay. And then it says, put the intention of locating that target into a random set of 8 one-digit numbers, for instance, and then there's a random set of 8-digit number.
Okay.
8 numbers. Then write those numbers down. Send just the coordinates. So that's the instructions. Then below that is what I wrote. I said target, planet Earth, Terra, target object at the moment of her creation.
Of the Earth's creation?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a wild target right there.
Right.
I can appreciate that. But I did pick up on the landmass right away.
Well, yeah, you got lots of things in there that it's at the very bottom. This is target object at the moment of Terra's creation, of her creation. So there it is. Well done.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to have to go back and look at the data again because that's wild.
Yeah.
I've never had a target like that before. That's wild.
You had like a bunch of things, but you had rocks, you had sediment, you had layers.
I had a landmass. I mean, I was even seeing the sun too. So evolution, evolution, it's evolutionary. Busy, cold, light, bright, evolved. Wow, something that was stacked. I just kept picking up on the stacked information, like different layers of like dirt and sediment and things like that. Like I was picking up on.
Well, yeah, because you did mention dirt several times. You mentioned layers a couple times.
Monstrous, though. That's like monstrously huge.
Adam and Eve is kind of interesting.
The
garden is interesting.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's like a creation story, right?
Well, that's the thing.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the creation of, well, you mentioned the garden. So the garden is interesting because that's what our planet ends up being, is
Mm-hmm.
a garden not just for the random evolution of species, but for the experimentation of many advanced races who come through this area of space and say, hey, we've got some life forms on our ship, and we're going to see if they work in this atmosphere, in this environment. And if they don't, we're going to tinker with them to see if they'll live. And then we're going to tinker with some forms we find on the planet. And so this is like this huge genetic experiment, this biosphere that's like a terrarium, really.
Well, the data says architects and architecture as well, and I know that that's something that you talk about, like who built the Earth, right? Who
Right,
terraformed Terra? My goodness, I was definitely picking up on the architects. It's very ancient architects. Is
right.
that my day?
Because you said ancient and you said architects and
Mm-hmm.
architecture,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing because normally I think for your remote viewing sessions, like if you just said architecture, that's so vague.
Mm-hmm.
But for this, it's actually perfect.
Yeah, very old, ancient, and wow, yeah, it does kind of make sense. The data makes a little more sense now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
Oh man,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm impressed with the whole Adam and Eve thing actually too. Wow, with the creation story and the serpent. Ooh,
Yeah, I
the
wonder
serpent.
what the serpent.
Ooh, reptilians.
Yeah, I mean the reptilians do seem to be somehow involved with us throughout our history.
I mean, I don't know though. There's some kind of symbology with that snake though, you know, and the Adam and Eve. And I was seeing it. It was like it was going up a tree. So man, that's a cool target, Jock. I got to give you some credit. That was a really good target. That was a
Well,
very good target.
I really didn't think it didn't even occur to me that I would give you that a target like that until because I thought for sure I would just try to find out where some tunnels are so I could go find some tunnels. Um,
Some
because
tunnels.
I'm always wondering where the tunnel entrances are at these ancient sites that I explore. And I'm like, if I just had a remote viewer who knew what they were doing, they could say, "Oh, it's over here," and just put your
Mm-hmm.
shovel right there. But then I thought, wait, I'm writing a book on called Artifact Terra about the creation of our planet, and so various readers have through the Akashic records have said that advanced races through intelligent, conscious intention have started with geometrical thought forms that then transmuted into matter from the ether. And that's how our planet was created. So I was like, well, that's cool. I wonder if Jessica can see that in her mental screen.
Yeah, I find it interesting that I wrote down travel back in time. I literally wrote that travel back in time. And then it went straight into the Adam and Eve data, the creation story of mankind, of womankind, right? That is just wild. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that it was at least a little bit on target here. Okay. I'm just glad. It's a good relief. Okay. Good relief. From dark to light, too. Isn't that interesting? That was the last thing I wrote down, from dark to light with the creation of the earth.
Right. And again, I would, as a remote viewer, if I was a remote viewer, I would think from dark to light, oh, that's so general. It doesn't
Yeah.
really mean anything. And yet, in the context of the target, the specific target, the creation of Terra, it means it's absolutely perfect, you know?
I think so, too. I think so too. Here's the thing about remote viewing: it's not always super specific. It just depends, and it depends on how many sessions you do, and if you have a tasker that will guide you and all that kind of stuff. If they know what the target is,
Right.
and I think this is actually some pretty good data for that target. I think. I mean, speaking from a
100%.
remote viewer standpoint, this is great data, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I am impressed with the data
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
now that I know what it is. I think that I think it'd be great to go back and do another session on it, and even having other remote viewers look into that. It's a cool target. Very cool target.
Well, most people would not even think of giving that as a target, since most people on the planet believe that the Earth came into existence through natural forces from a protoplanetary disk of dust and gas around a young forming sun, which is what we're told in school. So why would you even question that? But because there's some problems with gravitational accretion of a planet from dust and gas. I mean, you get a piece of dust here, and then 1,000 miles away is another piece of dust, and they're supposed to gravitationally attract, and then from 1,000 miles away, it's just ridiculous. So to me, the theory has problems. And then when you say, well, what if we just say it's a theory and not a fact? And what if we say, let's look at the Akashic records through people like you who have some sort of special access that many of us don't, and then ask that question, how is the Earth formed? So it's a step. It's a step it's like accruing more and more data, looking at the possibility that the Earth was built or brought from the ether, from the darkness of space, because the ether is transparent, so we see the darkness of space, to light. So the Earth is now visible in this light of the sun. Wow, what a wonderful thing,
Oh my gosh, I love that. There were architects who made the Earth. I mean, that's it. I think that your theory is a good one.
Well, it's amazing you said architects and architecture. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, ancient architects. I mean, that's right on the money right there.
It's right on the money, Jessica.
Yeah, it's right on the money. Man, and secrecy too. A lot of secrecy. I mean, I wonder, someone on this earth, there's a lot of secrecy that goes on with our hidden history,
right.
The true history of not only North America, all the entire world, and even the creation of the world. And it makes you wonder, like, are there people? Is there hidden? Because I wrote down what I wrote down. I wrote forbidden knowledge. Yeah. That was actually something I wrote down: forbidden knowledge and forbidden fruit. Okay, it's forbidden. Like, we're not supposed to know these things. The true history of creation of the earth, or even of mankind, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
Who's hiding that information, though? I mean, who knows that? So many, like, secret societies and religious groups and things like that. Let's just say the Vatican. People hiding information, maybe, potentially. This is for entertainment purposes only. I always say that on my channel. It's for entertainment only.
Yeah, Jessica's information is for entertainment purposes only. The things that I say are not for entertainment purposes only. So screw you, YouTube. No.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah. I'm just trying to have some cushion there if we need it.
Yeah. Let's say that for this podcast, the information presented is for educational purposes only. We're basically nonprofit units, you and I. We're not out there making tons of money doing this. We're just trying to get information to people. So, Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always fun hanging out with you. It's always fun.
From this little piece of paper might come some great things. So, well done.
Thank you. Well, thank you for tasking me with such a great target. I have a lot to ponder now. Now that I know what the target is, I'm going to go back and really think about all this and really do some deep analysis of it. It's pretty amazing, actually, that I was able to get some of that data out of that.
Yeah, you had the word sediment. It's like there's three kinds of rock, according to geology. There's three kinds of natural rock: sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. So yeah, sediment, that's a word that for most targets would not work. It would be completely irrelevant, sediment. Yeah. But for this, it's so right on,
Yeah, layers of it too, stacked in layers.
Of dirt
and sediment.
And I
Yeah.
think the stacking might even be the geometry of thought, where they're stacking geometrical, because if Vanessa Lyle Whittergren is correct, and I've had 19 sessions with her, she says that advanced races use geometry of thought. They use intention to create uh, thought forms that are in geometrical patterns that then transmuted into matter. So therefore, in a way, everything that we see that's material, all those sedimentary layers that are stacked, those are actually originally stacked geometrical patterns that didn't have any material form to them at all. They were basically invisible, but from dark to light, they transmuted from the thought, the geometrical thought, into visible matter that we can work with, we can dig, we can plant a tree, we can walk on the planet. So that's pretty amazing, that you have those terms in there: sediment, layers,
Hmm. Wow, that's amazing.
stacked. It's so general when you say
Hmm.
stacked that it would mean virtually nothing in almost any other remote viewing, but stacked in this is like so specific to what must have happened when they
Hmm.
create geometrical layers of the planet.
Hmm. And I did write pyramid as well in there
Yeah,
too, because what I was seeing was it was almost like stacks of when I drew that drawing on the first page for my stage 3 drawing. It was almost like I thought, well, maybe I was looking at a pyramid, like that right
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
I wasn't really sure what I was looking at. I just was seeing layers of dirt and stuff. And I wrote stones as well and rocks,
Right.
rocks and stones. And I don't even see, I'm not a geologist or anything. I don't even know what, like sediment. I guess that's like at the bottom of the creek bed, right? Or whatever. But these are just, I mean, that's how remote viewing works.
Right.
And yeah, it's just how it works.
Well,
It's how I'm interpreting stuff.
we're taught in school that sedimentary layers form naturally, and that makes sense. Except that then through many sedimentary layers in the world, we see these straight vertical lines and the sedimentary layers are supposed to be representative of time periods: 500 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years of sediment. So if there's a straight line that bisects all of those layers, it's a right angle to the earth. And then over here, 3 feet, there's another straight line that bisects all of those time periods. And then there's another straight line going at the same angle, right angle, bisecting. And then so you see these straight lines zooming through these time periods of natural geology. And you're like, wait, those can't be sedimentary layers because there's no mechanism to make a straight line in sediment, because it's all horizontal. All the action of natural sedimentation is horizontal. So you naturally find horizontal lines and layers. Yeah, perfect. But you cannot find a single line that bisects 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 time periods. That's clearly artifice. And therefore, most of the sedimentary layers that we find across the planet, when we just look at the fact that they're bisected by these lines, we know that that's artifice. It doesn't mean that we can't have natural sedimentation in a creek bed or a riverbed. That is obviously happening. This is another clue, another step, as I was saying, toward the truth about the past of our planet, the distant and mysterious past of our amazing planet, Terra.
I love it. I love this. Thank you for giving me that target. That was cool.
Well, you're so busy, and I thank you for taking time out of your incredibly busy life to delve into this etheric fabric of the universe to find these amazing answers. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've always got time for you, Doc. You are one of the. First of all, you're an amazing person, but you have a true thirst for the truth, and to look into these mysteries, and you think outside the box like none other, and I love it. And you're the geologist's worst nightmare. I'm just kidding. It's like the controllers, actually. Maybe it's the controller's worst nightmare. I think we both are. Okay, so we gotta keep on digging into stuff like this, so to speak. Pardon the pun there. Gotta dig into it.
I like it. Well,
Yeah.
I think that just like with your work, it's like our work can dovetail with the existing scientific work that's been done. It doesn't, we don't have to throw away everything. We
Mhm.
just have to add on a little bit and say, look, yeah, geology does exist. We do have sedimentary layers with fossils in them, and that gives us the chronology of life. But what if all that sedimentation came after the planet was created from dark to light by intelligent races, so that over time, the continental concrete that formed from the geometrical platforms from these beings that created our planet, that eroded and that those little granules formed, came into low-lying areas through the action of water, and they were brought in, and the sedimentation then was like this thick soupy material that life forms would fall into, or dead animals would fall into, and that gave us the chronology of life. So the geological theory in these fossil beds works with the artifact Terra theory, as I call it, or the continental terraforming theory, the theory that our planet came into existence through artifice. So let's say it's just about time. In the distant past, we have artifice. In the recent past, we have natural geological mechanisms, this granular material that's eroding from the artifact of the planet. So we can work with existing scientific paradigms, and your work as the cryptid huntress works with the existing scientific paradigms, because it's not just dogmen came from nowhere. You're saying no, they were created. Maybe they were created in laboratories by, let's say, dark factions of military groups, or there was some interbreeding that might have been natural, but there's a scientific explanation for these cryptids coming into existence, being on the surface or below the surface of our planet.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I just look back in the history books and on old ancient maps, and there are civilizations pictured, like the Piri Reis map from the 1590s, of dog-headed people. Civilizations of them, like whole areas on the map of dog-headed people and blimmies and dragons and unicorns and things like that. I mean, it's there. It's there to go look into. A lot of history has been omitted for modern day school books and things like that. A lot of things have been hidden from us. And it's a matter of digging into our history, the history that we can find, history we've been told, I guess, and looking beyond that. And that's where remote viewing steps in, and being able to remote view things, and it can be dangerous for the controllers, okay, to have teams of people even that are able to look into these things and really see through it.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what the Piri Reis map is, it was just a map that a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis created. It was a 3-year map project that he created on gazelle skin parchment. And we only have one fragment of that map, which shows part of Antarctica. But Wikipedia, which is part of the control system, and academia and people who support academia, they say, oh, that little part is just the lower tip of South America bent round to fit the parchment, as if a Turkish admiral who is competent to sail the ancient seas would start a 3-year map project on a piece of parchment that's too small for his map. It is so ridiculous. So that's the control system. If you just look at what they're saying, it's so absurd that you can just ignore it. The truth is, the Piri Reis used 20 ancient source maps for that map, and that's probably where the dog-headed men came from, was because on those source maps were dog-headed men saying, you don't want to go here. You got dog-headed men who might, want to rip your throat out, and there's some giants over here, and so those are on the maps. And so he compiled those into this azimuthal projection centered on Cairo. And it's a really hard map projection to make. And it took him 3 years. The fact that that this is dismissed as a guy who didn't have enough room on the map, so he made that little tip in South America. No, he knew what Antarctica looked like, because the 20 ancient source maps knew what Antarctica looked like, because they were really ancient maps. They were depicting Antarctica when it was ice-free. So that's the map you're talking about. It's such a fantastic map. and the controllers come in and try and distract us from the beauty of this incredible map.
Yes. I mean, I love how you know way more about that map than I do. That's wonderful because I do refer to that map quite often whenever we're talking about the cynocephaly and dog-headed people. They've been written in history throughout history. I know history can be distorted by all the books and all the literature and everything like that. Some of the things do leak through. I mean, there were even stories of King Arthur fighting an entire battle in Edmonton against the dog-headed people, a whole army of them. They were dressed like humans.
Oh.
Okay, they considered them a people, and they spoke words. Okay, they actually spoke words. It was just, a little bit of speaking a language. Okay, and they would also bark like dogs. And they weren't as vicious against humans, they said, as you would think. Occasionally they would eat humans if they fought them in battle. They were like a people, and the humans would trade with them and live amongst each other for the most part. When you go back and do some digging with the dog-headed people, they have been seen throughout history and written about. Even werewolves as well, and I think that people would call some of them werewolves. I guess to me, werewolves are different because that's like a human who turns, and that's very European. The dog-headed people actually did. I mean, there've been plenty of them here from the beginning of time here in North America, and that may be why we still have remnants of them today. And people do encounter dog men. They're not wearing. Well, I'm not going to say all of them are not, because I have recent reports of people who have encountered dogmen that are wearing human clothing here in the United States, but it's like ripped clothes and stuff. It's not nice business suits and stuff. Okay.
Maybe that ripped clothing gives credence to the idea that they might have escaped from a laboratory where they were genetically created, and they had some clothing in the laboratory to keep them warm, and then they escaped and they only have one set of clothing, so eventually it's going to get torn up.
Could be. Yeah. I go out in the woods and I chase dogmen and stuff. Okay. So I do dogmen investigations pretty often. I just did one about less than a month ago. I was up in East Tennessee where there have been a lot of attacks on people and fatalities where people have been getting attacked by packs of wild dogs. We don't believe those are actually wild dogs. Speaking of remote viewing, I was tasked with some of those attacks as remote viewing targets. And I didn't see a pack of wild dogs. I'm just saying.
Right.
With either of those attacks. I saw one gigantic animal.
Right.
Attacking.
So the attacks resulted in claw marks and other marks that would not be from, say, a human hurting another human. It would be more some kind of animal. So the general line that given to the public is, oh, it's wild dogs. So the people don't panic and go, oh my God, there's a dog man out there somewhere.
One of the female that was attacked, she survived for 5 days. And I know this is kind of off topic for what we're talking about, but this is on topic for the dogman conversation. She lost, I think it was like 80+% of her flesh was gone. And she lived for 5 days after that attack. And she did succumb to her injuries. But while she was in the hospital, a judge put the entire hospital staff and her family, the police force, everybody went under a gag order where nobody could talk about what happened to her.
So even if she gave a testimonial, that's under a gag order, so we're not allowed to know what she said.
Correct.
And I'm guessing that judge was told by some sort of military faction to do exactly that. He didn't just come up with that out of nowhere.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean,
it's a good question.
Why would any judge even think of doing that for an attack that's supposed to be from wild dogs? You'd want to know what she said. How many dogs were there? Oh, there was 10. Okay, well, that's good to know that there was 10. Yeah. Look for a pack of 10 dogs. I mean, you wouldn't put a gag order on somebody if you really thought they were attacked by wild dogs.
No dogs were ever euthanized over that either. None of them. And there were dogs in the neighborhood, like down the road, that were kind of blamed for it, but they were all tested. They all came back negative. They had nothing to do with it.
And they're probably like wagging their tails and like friendly dogs, like dogs are.
Yeah, that's something that I've covered, which is a really sad aspect of the whole potential dogman attacks is when people do get attacked potentially, and there are several cases that are very highly suspicious and that it could have been dogmen. domesticated innocent dogs end up paying the price for it because there has to be a culprit. And so a lot of times innocent dogs do probably get euthanized over it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
that's sad. We're both seeking the truth here, and so that's why we go into these things. We're not trying to make everybody happy and entertain you with fun things. If what we find is fun, that's great. If what we find is not fun, like what we've just been talking about, that's got to come out too. We got to get to the truth of what's going on. Otherwise, we're just going to be in a dream for the rest of our life as a species, and we don't want to be that. We want to know. We want to be able to take charge of our lives and sort of be the captains of our destiny.
That's right. I just want everybody to live in awareness and not be scared and live in fear and stuff of all this of bad things happening to us. Just know that there are bad things out there, but just be aware of your surroundings at all times.
Yeah, and somehow you have the courage, knowing that there are dogmen and all sorts of wild chimera out there in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, I'm going to get my boots on, get up at 5 a.m. or whatever, get with my crew and get out there and track down some cryptids. I mean, I don't know how you come up with that courage, but I think we all need more of that. So thank you for setting that example, Jessica Jones.
Well, you are very welcome. Somebody's got to do it. Okay. It's what I live for. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's great. I don't live in fear. And I've been doing this for long enough, and I've been put in some really scary predicaments, and I've survived all of them. And that's in my everyday life and in the cryptid world. And I'm still here. I'm still smiling. And I love the adventure of it. And I just want to know more. And that's why I went Bigfooting for the first time. I wanted to see a real Bigfoot. They've got to be real, So let's go look. Okay, that's kind of how I am with everything. I want to experience it for myself.
Right.
So I'm very selfish when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. I'm here to live my life and experience things for me, and then I'll report back to people if they want to hear my stories. That's how I roll.
There was a great documentary on Sasquatch that dealt with the evidence left in the forest and at this person's house by the Sasquatch themselves. The conclusion of this documentary was that Sasquatch can disappear to our sight because they're interdimensional beings, and they regard the various dimensions that we say are separate. They regard those separate dimensions as one. So for them to go from our dimension, where there are certain frequency ranges and we have certain vision parameters, to another dimension, that's not a problem for them, because they regard that third and fourth and fifth, all the way up to 11 or 12, as one frequency range. And they just travel through that frequency range without a problem, because they're very sophisticated beings. So that's why we can find reports of Sasquatch being sighted, and then no one can find them. They see a footprint, but then the footprint stops. The footprints go to a certain place and then they stop. And it's like, well, that is explained if we understand that they are able to travel through dimensions and not have to be physically in our dimension at all times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I've said for a long time, I do believe that they are able to access our Earth's natural portals as well, and that explains why they disappear right in front of us sometimes as well. I mean, that's a really great explanation, though, Jock. I really like that. I resonate with that. I believe it.
Well, that's in a really cool documentary called Speaking of Sasquatch. We're trying to get the evidence out, you, me, and a whole lot of other people. We're doing our best. We got our little YouTube channels, and we're trying to get 100 views or 500 views, and doing our best to up the ante, to increase, as you say, increase awareness. I think it's so important that everybody pitches in on this and gives what they have. You have your gift. You've got this incredible both courage and the gift of sight, clairvoyancy, clairaudial ability. pretty amazing. The ability to smell, taste, touch, hear, all these things at a non-local, a remote location, even one that's remote in time. That is amazing. You're amazing. Thank you, Jessica Jones, for your time. And we're going to end this session with a song, and you're going to sing it. Go ahead.
Boy, I tell you what, you put me on the spot today, Jock. I'll hand the mic to you.
You were the lead in all these High School Musicals. I mean, come on.
I was in high school. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was actually the vocalist of our jazz band at school and all that stuff. But yeah, I just sing in the shower now. That's basically about as far as I take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you should make up a song about the Sasquatch right now. Go ahead. Go.
I cannot even. I'm gonna whoop your butt. Just kidding. Oh man.
Okay. We'll patch a song in later.
All the dimensions are one to the Sasquatch.
Okay.
Jessica Jones, thanks for being on the show. I love you. You're so amazing in so many ways. I can't even describe how much, all the amazing things about you. So I'm not going to try. You're amazing in this dimension and all the dimensions. I love you. All the angels love you. All the advanced races love you. That you're their main warrior on Terra. So God bless you. Goddess bless you. And we love you.
Thank you, Jock. I love you too, and everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.